Welcome to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram's Immigration News Roundup podcast special called The Great Visa Purge. Trump administration scrutinizes 55 million visa holders in sweeping crackdown. We would like to thank the staff at the law offices of Chris M. Ingram who have worked very hard in preparing the research for this podcast from a wide variety of news sources from both sides of the aisle so that you get a balanced view. Attorney Ingram is also a vocal advocate for the rights and protection of immigration applicants. Our coverage is designed to be nonpartisan. Please do not forget to give us a like, follow, and subscribe to this channel. We are also on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram, where we're growing rapidly thanks to our social media team. You can also visit our website on www.breakthroughUSA.com. We'd love to see you there. Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something, well, massive. It's a topic that affects millions globally. We're talking about a really significant announcement from the Trump administration. They've unveiled a plan to scrutinize, get this, 55 million valid U.S. visa holders. Our legal team, they've done a ton of research looking at all sorts of news outlets, and they've kind of summarized it as the Great Visa Purge. Trump administration scrutinizes 55 million visa holders in sweeping crackdown. And just to be clear, this isn't some minor adjustment. It's a huge policy shift. It was formally announced back on August 21st, 2025. And, well, the ripples are already being felt worldwide.
That's absolutely right. What we're looking at here is a very deliberate, very significant policy update. It's happening relatively early in President Trump's second term. And it really signals a continuation, maybe even an intensification of the administration's long-held approach to immigration policy. The scale, as you mentioned, is just. It's what makes this stand out. Over 55 million foreign nationals, people with valid U.S. visas. I mean, think about that number. It's like the population of Spain or South Korea, basically everyone under this constant review. The administration, they've been quite clear about why they're doing this. They link it directly to, tackling visa fraud, dealing with overstays, and of course, national security concerns. It's set up to be this comprehensive, continuous effort, reevaluating who's here, why, and if they're sticking to their visa terms, not just when they enter, but like throughout their entire stay.
Okay, that phrase, sweeping crackdown, it definitely catches your attention. So what does it actually involve when you say 55 million people are being scrutinized? What does that look like? How do they even manage that?
Right. So the official word came down from the U.S. Department of State, August 21st, 2025, out of Washington, D.C. And the scope, like you said, is huge. Our researchers found confirmations from officials that this program applies to all visa holders. No exceptions mentioned. So that means students who are here studying, workers using their skills in our economy, even family members who've joined relatives through proper channels. No particular visa category gets a pass from what they're terming continuous vetting.
Wow. So it's really a universal net. Anyone with a valid U.S. visa, that's a mind-boggling task. Which brings me back to that term, continuous vetting. What does that actually mean in practice? How on earth do you manage that kind of information flow for 55 million people, like all the time?
Yeah, it's a good question. Our legal team's research defines continuous vetting as involving, and I'm quoting here, ongoing checks using data analytics, AI, and databases. Now, this isn't your standard background check when you first apply, not at all. We're talking about something much more dynamic. It's like an always-on system built for constant monitoring. The key here is the technology, the sophistication of the tools they're apparently using. Imagine like a massive digital system using advanced data analytics, maybe even artificial intelligence, constantly sifting through just enormous amounts of data on every single visa holder. It's less like running a search and more like maintaining a constantly updated profile for everyone. Think about all the data points. Your initial application, your travel records when you enter, when you leave public records, maybe traffic tickets, court appearances, and yes, even social media activity. It all gets fed into the system. And the AI, it isn't just storing it. It's supposedly looking for patterns, for anomalies, things that might suggest someone's eligibility has changed or there's potential risk. Maybe someone's student visa status doesn't quite match up with online activity, hinting at a full-time job. Or maybe a series of minor things flags a pattern the AI identifies. That triggers a human review. It's predictive analysis, real-time risk assessment, but on a scale we haven't really seen before in U.S. immigration. And this implies, a deep integration of all sorts of databases, immigration, customs, criminal justice, maybe even public data sources, all working together.
And we know key figures, people like Secretary of State Marco Rubio, are framing this primarily as a national security measure. That definitely adds weight to it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That national security angle is central to how they're justifying this whole thing. But what's also really crucial, and our team's research highlights this, is how fast it rolled out. These reviews apparently began immediately, like right across the U.S., the day it was announced, not weeks or months later. This kind of immediate nationwide launch with no real phase-in period, it suggests a very high level of urgency and, frankly, a lot of preparation beforehand. I mean, logistically, launching something this data-heavy overnight, that's a huge challenge. It implies they had the planning, the resources, the tech infrastructure ready to go. This wasn't a test run. It was full-scale, right out of the gate.
Okay, scope is massive, tech is advanced. Let's get down to the brass tacks, though, because this is where it gets really interesting for individuals. What specific criteria are they using? What flags someone? What kind of behavior, what data point makes the system go ping?
All right, this is the core of it. Our legal team's research breaks down several key areas they're focusing on intensely. First up, and maybe the most obvious, are visa overstays. People staying longer than they're allowed. The detection is pretty straightforward, mostly cross-checking entry and exit records from Homeland Security databases. But here's the nuance our team found. Even brief overstays are now a bigger concern, not just people who overstay by months or years. Attorney Chris Ingram, in his commentary provided to our legal team, really stressed this. He said something like, as immigration lawyers, we have a duty of care to ensure information filed is accurate. There must be no intentional overstays. He emphasizes that a visa is a privilege. But Chris also brought up a really important point about, the human side. He urged the government to develop simple protocols that would enable visa holders to remedy any inadvertent overstays within the U.S. Because, let's face it, sometimes things happen, right? A flight gets canceled by a blizzard or someone has an unexpected medical issue. These aren't people deliberately breaking rules. But without a clear way to fix it quickly, even these situations could now trigger serious problems under this continuous vetting. So the enforcement is shifting, it's becoming more proactive, scrutinizing smaller deviations, and really putting the onus on every visa holder to be perfectly compliant all the time.
That's a really important point about accidental versus intentional overstays. Okay, so besides overstaying, what else flags someone? What are the other big red flags?
Another huge area is criminal activity. And the review here is, well, it's pretty broad. It covers records from U.S. law enforcement, yes, but also, significantly, records from the visa holder's home country. So they're looking for a wide range of things. Yeah. Serious felonies, obviously, but also maybe affiliations that raise security concerns, or even just a pattern of minor offenses that might suggest, a disregard for the law. Trying to check international criminal records consistently, that's a massive undertaking in itself. It really shows the global reach they're aiming for, catching any legal issues anywhere that they think are relevant.
And then there's the one that always sparks debate. Social media monitoring. What's the angle there in this great visa purge? How deep are they going into people's digital lives?
Yeah, that's a sensitive one. Our team's legal research suggests social media is being actively monitored. They're looking for content indicating concerns or anything relevant to visa eligibility. What's really insightful here is how this stretches government oversight into what most people think of as private digital space. It's probably not just about looking for explicit threats. It could be about finding posts, comments, connections that maybe through an algorithm seem inconsistent with the visa purpose. Or maybe indicate an intent to violate the terms. Student posting about a job they haven't declared maybe. Or a tourist talking about staying permanently. That could potentially raise a flag. It creates a real chilling effect, doesn't it? Visa holders might feel they have to watch everything they say online or risk their status. It definitely raises big questions about digital privacy, due process, especially if algorithms are making the first call. The impact on privacy, on freedom of expression for visa holders is pretty profound. Government watching almost every part of your life.
That is a huge and very personal area of scrutiny. What about the application itself? Are they just checking for lies, or is it more subtle?
Good question. That brings us to fraud and good moral character. On the fraud side, it's not just about the initial application anymore. Continuous vetting means they're also looking for unreported changes. Did you move? Change jobs? Get married? If you didn't update the immigration authorities properly, these omissions could now be flagged by the system. It's about keeping that profile consistently accurate. Then there's good moral character. The system is assessing, and this is based on our team's research, inconsistencies in immigration histories that might suggest system abuse. That phrasing is key. It's about showing you intend to follow the spirit of the law, not just the letter. Maybe someone has applied for lots of different short-term visas without a clear, ongoing purpose. Or maybe there are small misrepresentations on different forms over time. Even if not outright fraud individually, together they might paint a picture for the system of someone trying to game the system. It's a very broad standard. It gives authorities a lot of leeway.
Feeling lost in a maze of visa types and paperwork? Don't know where to turn? We've got your back. With clear answers and real help, we'll guide you every step of the way. Let's navigate it together. Your journey starts today.
Hello, you must be Clara. Welcome to the law office of Chris M. Ingram.
Finally, I found a law firm that will help me achieve my American dream.
At this law firm, you are important to us. That's why we will be with you every step of the way. So join us at the office of Chris M. Ingram.
And just to really hammer home how strict this is, our legal team found a direct quote from a State Department spokesperson. They said, "The department cancels visas when there are indications of a potential ineligibility, which includes things like any indicators of overstays, criminal activity, threats to public safety, engaging in any form of terrorist activity, or providing support to a terrorist organization." So if you step back, what's really striking is how detailed and multi-layered this whole approach is. It blends old school record checks with very modern intrusive methods like AI and social media scanning. It's trying to create this incredibly comprehensive, always-on vetting net.
Okay, given how broad this is and how fast it rolled out, what have been the immediate effects? Since August 21st, 2025, have we seen concrete results or shifts from this intense scrutiny actually happening?
Oh, yes. Our team's research shows swift and significant action. The State Department reported a sharp increase in visa revocations right after the program started. Specifically, they've revoked more than twice as many visas compared to the same time frame the year before. That shows the immediate bite of this intensified vetting. And it's even starker in certain categories. For student visas, nearly 4 times as many have been revoked. We're talking concrete numbers here. Over 6,000 student visas canceled. Our legal research breaks it down further. About 4,000 of those were for things like legal infractions, assault, DUI, that sort of thing. And another 200 to 300 were specifically flagged for terrorism-related concerns. So this isn't just theory. It's having real, immediate, and often life-changing consequences for thousands of people already. A student getting their visa pulled. That's their education over. Forced departure, a mark on their record. Huge impact.
Right. So the administration isn't just talking the talk. They're walking the walk with quick action. And they're doubling down on enforcement, including deportation if needed.
Exactly. And there was another related move, also reported by our legal team, happening basically at the same time. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also acted on worker visas. He specifically paused the issuance of worker visas for commercial truck drivers. He cited safety concerns pretty directly. He posted on X saying something like, "The increasing number of foreign drivers operating large tractor-trailer trucks is endangering American lives and undercutting the livelihoods of American truckers," all quote. The State Department backed this up, talking about ensuring high standards for drivers to protect American truckers' jobs and keep the supply chain secure. So it looks like a two-pronged approach. Intense vetting for those already here, and in some cases hitting pause on new visas for specific jobs.
So what does that mean for those industries and for the people who might have been aiming for those truck driver jobs? It feels like both tightening the screws and closing some doors.
It absolutely feels like that. A dual strategy. The pause on trucker visas, framed as safety, clearly hits a specific industry and its workforce needs. It suggests a deliberate move, perhaps, to prioritize American workers in certain fields, even if it causes disruption for businesses that rely on foreign labor. It creates instant uncertainty for trucking companies needing drivers, maybe impacting supply chains, and of course for the individuals planning to come work in that role. It could cause sudden labor shortages in a sector that's often already stretched thin, potentially impacting shipping costs, the whole supply chain, which eventually hits consumers. And thinking about the wider human impact, attorney Chris Ingram, from his humanitarian viewpoint in our legal research, he raised a really critical concern. He said, "It is unfortunate that the manner in which overstayers are treated is all too often inhumane, and this is tarnishing the brand of America as a welcoming and caring country." He acknowledges the need for secure borders, absolutely, but he adds this caution. Still, the enforcement incidences reported on the news are horrific. We can do better than this. It really highlights the human cost, doesn't it? And how these policies might affect how the world sees America. That tension between security and, compassion.
That's a crucial point, balancing enforcement and America's image. So how are other countries reacting? And what about businesses here in the U.S.? Are we seeing diplomatic ripples or economic pushback yet?
Our team's legal research indicates we are seeing diplomatic responses. Countries like India and China, for instance, have voiced serious concerns, Which makes sense, right? They have huge numbers of citizens in the U.S. on visas, students, workers, family. It's likely their governments are engaging through diplomatic channels, maybe raising formal objections, perhaps even thinking about travel advice for their own citizens. It creates a real climate of uncertainty for those countries and their people. And it could definitely strain international relations. It might affect cooperation on trade, tech, even security. Real friction. You might even see shifts, Students choosing other countries, skilled workers looking elsewhere. It could impact America's competitiveness long term.
And inside the U.S., are businesses feeling the heat and speaking out?
Yes, the research shows growing economic worries domestically. Some U.S. businesses, particularly in tech and agriculture, have noted potential disruptions. These are sectors often heavily reliant on foreign talent. Think specialized tech engineers or essential farm workers. When visa rules get tighter, more unpredictable, or more punitive, it messes with their workforce planning, their costs, their ability to compete globally. It really connects to the bigger economic picture, showing how much some key U.S. industries depend on foreign labor. Sudden policy changes can send shockwaves.
It sounds incredibly far-reaching, and our legal research mentioned another tool, mandatory access to electronic devices during visa interviews. That's way beyond just looking at public social media, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Mandatory access to devices. That's a whole different level of intrusion. It moves from public data into intensely private digital spaces. We're not talking a quick look at your phone. This means officials could demand to inspect your phone, your laptop, your tablet, right there in the interview or at the border, looking through messages, emails, photos, browsing history, apps, searching for anything they might see as a red flag, security risk, intent to overstay, inconsistency with the application. It raises enormous privacy questions. It's like opening up your entire digital life, even if you're not suspected of anything. Civil rights groups are, understandably, expressing deep concerns. They see it as a potential overreach, questioning just how far this kind of invasive search should go, even for non-citizens.
And just to underscore how thorough this is, our team's research points out the review covers all available information, including law enforcement or immigration records or any other information that comes to light after visa issuance indicating a potential ineligibility. It's not a one-time check.
Exactly. It's about creating that continuously updated profile. A living file, almost. Any new piece of information, whenever and however it pops up, can trigger another look at your visa eligibility. The idea seems to be leave no stone unturned, an environment of, constant surveillance for visa holders.
Okay, to really get this deep dive, we need the context. What's the history here? The political background that led to this great visa purge, it didn't just appear out of nowhere, right?
No, definitely not. If you connect the dots, this initiative is clearly an extension, maybe even an escalation, of policies from President Trump's first term. We remember things like the travel restrictions, the so-called travel ban targeting several Muslim-majority nations, and the public charge rule aimed at immigrants seen as likely to need public assistance. So this move, coming early in the second term after the 2024 election, fits right in with the administration's stated goals to ramp up deportation efforts, tighten controls on who comes in, and critically, who gets to stay. It feels like fulfilling campaign promises, a consistent ideological approach focused heavily on national sovereignty and strict enforcement.
And how does this fit with the situation regarding unauthorized immigration, based on our legal team's research? What's the backdrop there?
Well, our legal team's research mentions that unauthorized immigration hit about 14 million back in 2023. But it also notes that the number apparently decreased somewhat since then, attributing that partly to enhanced border controls put in place earlier. So the narrative seems to be, we face ongoing challenges, both at the border and inside the country, but our previous enforcement worked, so now we need to do even more comprehensively to secure the interior. It's tackling both sides of the border and internal compliance.
The official reason given is security and economic reasons, but are there complexities there, especially economically? Seems like it could backfire.
There's definitely a potential economic paradox here. The administration talks about protecting American jobs. Yet our team's research points out that the U.S. faces labor shortages in areas like technology, agriculture, and healthcare, where visa holders contribute significantly. These aren't small sectors, right? They're vital parts of the economy, often needing specialized skills or labor that might be hard to find domestically. So tightening the rules for these workers could, ironically, make those shortages worse. That could raise costs for businesses, slow down innovation, maybe even hurt overall economic growth, especially now. Edward Alden from the Council on Foreign Relations, he shared some thoughts with our team via email. He said, This action should be seen as part of a concerted effort to discourage American companies and institutions like universities and hospitals from hiring and retaining foreign workers. He added, the goal here is not to target specific classes of workers, but to send the message to American employers that they are at risk if they are employing foreign workers. The economic consequences will be far larger than just the immediate hits. It's this idea of potential self-sabotage. Policies meant to help U.S. jobs might end up harming industries that need foreign talent, maybe pushing innovation elsewhere, ultimately hurting the economy.
It definitely sounds like a tangled web. And politically, immigration is always such a flashpoint. With Congress often gridlocked, it seems like executive actions like this become the main way policy changes happen.
You finally got your family together on a H-1B. Your American dream begins. Your employer files for your EB-2 green card, but the wait is over 11 years. As the years go by, frustration grows, and now the company is talking about layoffs. This could be the end of your American dream. You search for help, but luckily, you land on breakthroughusa.com. They listen, reassured you, and built your EB-1 case with precision. Then one day, a notification buzzes, EB-1 approved. With your EB-1 green card, your entire family can breathe.
I have got my visa. I got my visa.
That's why the law offices of Chris M. Ingram is trusted. Your future shouldn't wait. Let's talk EB-1.
What are the next steps?
Need help with your visa? Book your free consultation now at www.breakthroughusa.com and let us take care of you.
That's exactly it. The lack of broad agreement in Congress often leads to presidents using executive orders and directives to shape immigration policy. That's what we're seeing here. And you have to remember the global context, too. Huge migration trends driven by things like climate change displacing people or geopolitical instability, conflicts forcing people to move. U.S. policy, you could argue, is partly a reaction to these massive external pressures, an attempt to control borders while these global forces keep pushing migration worldwide. It's managing internal anxieties against external realities.
And it's good to remember the different ways people visit. There's the visa waiver program. People from about 40 countries, mostly Europe and Asia, can come for up to 3 months without a formal visa. But that's not everyone.
Right. For people from many other countries, China, India, Russia, lots across the globe, they need a full visa application. That process is key. And this distinction matters even more now, especially with big events coming up. Attorney Chris Ingram highlighted this to our legal team. Think about the FIFA World Cup in 2026, hosted here, Canada, and Mexico. Chris noted some competing nations were on Trump's past travel ban lists, and even for visitors from other non-visa waiver countries, he mentioned they're already facing massive delays getting visas for the event, likely due to this increased scrutiny and backlogs. Plus, there's President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. That's a legislative proposal which apparently introduced a new $250 visa integrity fee. Chris warns this fee threatens to deter visitors to the U.S. It could really hurt attendance, hurt the economic boost you'd normally get from hosting something like the World Cup. So these policies, they're not just hitting current residents. They could cast a shadow on future travel, international events, the economy tied to them, making the U.S. potentially harder to visit.
Okay, so as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, let's boil it down. What does this really mean for individuals, for governments, for communities here and around the world? What are the concrete takeaways for you, the listener?
Well, for visa holders themselves, the biggest thing is probably increased uncertainty. Just this feeling of instability. It could really impact family life, worrying about your status, long-term plans, maybe being separated from loved ones, and careers too. The constant possibility of a visa issue hanging over your head makes planning very difficult. It fundamentally changes the experience of being here on a temporary visa, makes it feel much less secure. For governments, both the U.S. State Department and foreign ministries elsewhere, it creates real diplomatic challenges. As other countries react, maybe with protests, travel warnings, maybe even their own restrictions on U.S. citizens, it can strain relationships. It can impact cooperation on trade, security, all sorts of things. Makes the global stage more complicated, maybe more tense. And then locally, in U.S. communities, especially maybe in sanctuary cities, you might see more federal enforcement activity that could lead to more friction between residents and federal agents, strain relations with local police, raise civil rights concerns again. It can create this climate of fear and mistrust locally.
And public opinion, based on our team's legal research, seems pretty split on this, which isn't too surprising given how complex it is.
That's right. Polls suggest maybe around 52% support stricter enforcement, kind of aligning with the administration's security and compliance goals. But then you have 48% expressing worries about the impact on people on the humanitarian side, economic effects, civil liberties. It really shows the deep divide in society on this. Attorney Chris Ingram also gave his analysis on how it's being put into practice. He noted the vetting program introduces more active enforcement, which might improve compliance if applied evenly. But he added a warning. It prompts considerations of resources and error risks in a large-scale operation. His advice: visa holders should keep records current, and authorities need to ensure security aligns with procedural fairness. Quote, that really highlights the need for individuals to be meticulous, but also for the government to be transparent, accurate, and fair. Those actually with systems that rely so heavily on data and algorithms where errors can happen.
So thinking longer term, this expanded vetting, it could actually discourage people from coming to the U.S. at all, for study, for work.
That's a very real possibility, yes. The feeling of increased scrutiny, the higher risk of visa problems, the general uncertainty. It could make the U.S. seem less welcoming, less attractive for international students, skilled workers, maybe even tourists. And that, in turn, could hit industries hard. Universities, research labs, tech companies, healthcare, agriculture, sectors that rely on that global talent pool and engagement. It's this trade-off, isn't it? Perceived security gains versus potential cost to the economy, education, culture, maybe even America's global standing over time.
Which leads us perfectly into Attorney Chris Ingram's The Takeaway. This really distills his final thoughts on what this means for immigrants and the system itself.
Yes, Chris's concluding perspective, carefully gathered by our legal team, it offers a really nuanced and human take on all this. He starts by saying, for those immigrants who work with highly qualified attorneys in the preparation of their visa applications, they should have nothing to worry about, which really underscores how crucial good legal help is in navigating this increasingly complex system, doesn't it? He also adds, those immigrants who do not overstay their visas should also be fine, reinforcing that basic message, follow the rules strictly. But then Chris directly addresses a tough reality. He acknowledges at the same time we must acknowledge there is a swath of visa holders who come into the U.S. legally every year but never leave and become undocumented. Recognizing that overstaying isn't always malicious. Life happens, circumstances change, and he strongly advocates for humane treatment. He says those expired visa holders should be humanely held to account and be afforded proper due process so that the circumstances of their overstay can be adequately and fairly considered. It's a call for compassion, right? Recognizing each person's situation needs fair consideration, not just a blanket judgment. He specifically mentions compassion for those who've overstayed but otherwise have been law-abiding, maybe built lives here, married U.S. citizens, have U.S.-born kids. He poses the hard question: what happens if removing them devastates that American family? And he finishes with this call for judicial wisdom. Quote, we need the wisdom of judges to consider everything and be given the powers to make the right judgment that balances the interests of their U.S. citizen spouse and children, if removing them would irreparably devastate the American family members. It really brings home the deep personal impact these policies can have and the need for nuance, for empathy, especially when American families are involved.
So what does this all mean for you? As you consider the vast scope of this great visa purge, think about the ongoing tension between a nation's sovereign right to secure its borders and the deeply human stories intertwined with immigration. How can societies effectively address security and economic concerns while upholding principles of fairness, due process, and compassion for individuals and families who contribute to its fabric, ensuring that the brand of America remains one of welcome and care, as Attorney Chris Ingram eloquently put it. Thank you so much for being with us today. We hope you gained a lot from this discussion. Please leave us a comment if you can. Additionally, you can support our channel by sharing it with your friends and family, helping us build this community together. Also follow us on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram, where we're growing rapidly thanks to our social media team. We'd also like to thank Attorney Chris Ingram and his dedicated team once again for researching and preparing this material for our presentation. If you, a friend or family member, would like a free consultation, you can visit our website at www.breakthroughUSA.com and schedule an appointment. We'd love to hear from you and help you if we can. See you next time on Let's Talk U.S. Immigration. Bye for now.